Hey there guys, Raven here with another deck video for you today. We'll be talking about Czechoslovakia and, well, I really like this deck. I think all of the Eastern Bloc decks, the three national ones, have a lot to offer and they're all a lot of fun. Unfortunately, just like Poland and East Germany, Czechoslovakia I would say they're 90% of the way there, but there's just a few really critical and very strange weaknesses that keep them from being a real hardcore deck on their own. But even then, they're a lot of fun, and I know a lot of people like to play national decks, as do I. I very rarely, if ever, play coalitions. And so, let's go ahead and get started. For my logistics section, I take the excellent T-72 command tank, which has 2 top armor. Very important for surviving artillery and bombing and any sort of indirect fire. This will really help you stand longer than for example, APC command with only 1 top armor. Though I do take one of those, the VSOT, this one, the VSOT 64A R2. For 20 points, 120 points, it's very fast and has a lot of survivability over the Jeep. You see it has 10 strength instead of 5, it has 1 armor all around instead of 0, and it's amphibious. I think the Jeep is a pretty nice unit to get in some decks just because it's so cheap and so available. But in decks like Czechoslovakia, where you get such a high availability bonus, you really can get away with all these tanks and the APCs and not worry about the availability per card quite as much. And then for supplies, the supply portion of the logistics section, I do take the T815 Colos over the T813. Just more supplies per truck, that's really all it is. It's interesting to note this actually has 1 front armor. Probably won't help you too much, but it's just interesting to note that if an autocan starts shooting at you, maybe you'll survive a little longer. I don't take a supply helicopter in this deck just because all you get is the MI4 and only has 1,000 supplies, which isn't even enough to fully fill up 1 Kolos truck, so I don't think that's a very good value. You could actually take another card at Kolos. This is a really great truck. I only happen to have 1 card, and I put this extra card that I saved where I would normally get a supply helicopter put into tanks. And of course a FOB, very nice unit to have, very versatile, will give you that resupply capability, get the most out of your 40-point trucks here by sending them back and forth to the FOB to get more supplies. Infantry section, you'll actually notice this is really similar to my Polish infantry section. I have the VSOT Kari, which are more or less a stack clone of the Spadochroniaja. This is the Czech Airborne. It's got a RPK LMG machine gun, which has been buffed over time. It's actually a pretty nice machine gun now, I'll say. It's got, of course, an assault rifle and this RPG-7 VR. The RPG-7 VR is not too terrible. It does have that really high 24 AP, but unfortunately the low range and sort of midline accuracy really hurts it. I find in forest fighting and just generally situations where the VSOT car would be panicked, maybe you can't rely on the RPG-7 VR as much as you could on a Vampire or a Panzerfaust, for example, but it's the best Czechoslovakia has, and I guess in general it gets the job done and affordably at 20 points per squad. You see I do take these guys in the Mi-8T, which unfortunately this is 25 points, so you're kind of cutting into your availability. You could certainly get away with the Mi-4T instead, but it's just so slow. But you could do that, or even, I think, the overpriced OT-64A. I take in the Mi-8T just for the faster helicopter, more survivable, and you get the rockets as fire support. Overall, I wish these guys actually had better transport options, like a 10-point wheeled transport, or something like that. But the Mi-8T gets the job done. My second infantry card, I take the Motostrelci, which the Motostrelci are actually pretty good for 10-point line infantry, a lot better than people give them credit for. They have this LMG, which doesn't have the best accuracy, but it has really great range. It has the high suppression, and surprisingly high rate of fire, too, for a gun that is that long range and that inaccurate. Generally, that's an okay machine. It's not the best, but certainly not the worst. And a 10-point line infantry, pretty nice. And their RPG-75 is actually deceptively good as well. It's got the 20 rate of fire, which allows it to shoot twice as fast as most other RPGs, and that is interesting because it has enough AP to pop most transports in one hit, and then not enough to really hurt tanks, but it is heat, which means it'll always do at least 1 damage to tanks, so if you're going to have a low AP launcher, you might as well have one with 20 rate of fire to do that 1 damage to tanks that much faster, and maybe get a few more hits in there before the squad goes down. You see, I actually take these guys in the very nice looking BVP-2 VZ86. This is basically the Czech designation of the BMP-2 OBR 1986, which Soviet Union has, and it's got 3 front arms. It's got a Conquer's M. I would probably like if this unit was a little cheaper, but overall with 10-point motor Streltsy, it's actually quite affordable and gives you a lot of firepower between the missile and the autocannon, and decent availability as well. 10 on hardened. You could take 16 at train, but I'd probably rather just go for the hardened to make sure that missile hits more often. This is generally a pretty nice unit for fire support, maybe assaulting positions, and also helping tanks push across open ground and then deliver your infantry to whatever your objective is once you get there. And then I also take another card in Motor Streltsy, and I take him in the OT-64As. The OT-64A is overpriced. It really should be 10 points. It has only 1 armor all around. The KPVT, though being an autocannon, isn't very strong. So it really should be 10 points, and I hope they change that. But it's basically the cheapest transport you can get on wheels. You could obviously take the OT-62A or 62B, but they're so much slower, so I take the OT-64A to just have that rapid reaction, quick reinforcements, and then the KPVT does add a little bit of firepower to the squad as well. Further on in the infantry section, I take the Zaniste, which are flamethrower infantry. They're basically the Czech sappers or pioneers or engineers, whatever you'd want to call them. Very powerful unit in cities and forests, especially cities. Surprisingly, even in CQC combat, these guys will beat most elite infantry just because the flamethrower is so good and they can continue to use it in CQC. For city fighting, for fighting in the forest, this unit really is unrivaled, and I would recommend having at least a card of flamer infantry in just about any deck that you can get them in. So I take them in the OT-62 Vidra-2, which is this, not lightly armored. It's got 2 front, 2 side armor. It's just a nice vehicle with a really powerful autocannon. It's got 1750 range, 2 AP, nice accuracy as far as Soviet autocannons go. For only 15 points and overall 30-point package, this gives you a lot of just utility in forest. The flamethrowers engage infantry, the Vidra-2 engages light vehicles that might be sent at the Zaniste, and really good combination there. Though actually this should probably be a trained to get a lot more for them. And then let's see, Conquer's M. If you've heard a lot of my other videos, I'm not a big fan of ATGM infantry. Generally, I find their use to be very limited or very situational, and so I usually have a hard time justifying them. Unfortunately, in a Czech deck, there's not just too many other choices that I would go with, so you see their man pads are really bad. The best they have is the Strela 3, which is terrible. So, I take the Conquer's M, and they're a decent addition. You put them in the edge of towns, at the edge of forests, and ETGMs do have a big intimidation factor, I'll say that. You can really kind of screw up an attack just by having a bunch of missile trails go at an enemy, and he says, oh crap, and he reverses back and rethinks his decision to attack you. Let's see, in terms of other infantry that I didn't take, there is the Granatomet AGS-17, which is just a 5-man grenade launcher squad. I'm personally not a huge fan. It's an okay unit, but they only get 5 men, and I find these fire support squads to be very vulnerable. And they generally do the same job that the Zaniste would do with 10 men. and they're the same price anyways, so that's why I take the Zaniste. Lekka Pehota aren't bad either. They have these really funny hats they're wearing. They have, I'd say they're an okay value actually. For 20 points, they have a SMG and RPK, and then this kind of recoilless rifle. It doesn't have great AP, but it is long range. I don't think they're too useful. I wouldn't take them in a general deck. In a motorized deck, I think they definitely have a place though, and not a terrible unit, just don't have a good place in here. Let's see, Panzerov Nietzsche, not very good. Just in general, it's only 17 AP on this squad. This is a dedicated tank buster squad that can't bust tanks very effectively, so why would you take them, you know? That's pretty much it. I don't like reservists, and besides, these reservists are only 10 men. Even though they do come in a World War II vintage half-track from Nazi Germany, but yeah, I don't think the Zalzaz Nietzsche, God, I said that wrong, I'm sure, but I don't think these guys are that great. I really don't even see other people use them, so probably avoid those guys. And then moving on to the support section, we have actually a pretty strong support section. Czechoslovakia has a lot of native produced units, and they don't rely as much on Soviet tech, and that allows you some pretty interesting choices. My first unit is actually the Strop 1. It's not great. It is 30 points with terrible autonomy, but you get a relatively long-ranged AA gun, 26-25, which maybe won't be sniping longbows, but it'll certainly be deterring helicopter rushes and ambushing helicopters that get a little too close, as well as doubling as nice fire support for forests. Generally just a cheap AA piece you can sprinkle around, especially into back lines to watch against flankers or guard a home CV. I think it's a pretty good choice. And then I take the Strop 2. This is a really nice unit too. It's this big wheeled AA piece with a gun and some Igla missiles. It used to be a lot better, as it turns out, before it got nerfed a few times. It used to be 50 points. It used to have better accuracy. It's still a pretty nice unit. I just wish they'd revert some of the nerfs, because it's kind of relied upon heavily by Czechoslovakia. And it is non-radar, so that's nice. You don't have to worry about seed killing you, and it is very fast. Generally a good unit, though. And like I said, Czechoslovakia relies on it a lot as kind of their unique mainline AA piece. No other nation has this, or really anything like this, and so it's a pretty neat addition. And then I take the Cub M4. This is really just basically a Czechoslovakian buck. Very reliable, actually relatively affordable for this type of AA at 75 points. They'll definitely shoot down planes, just make sure you have a Kolos or two nearby to keep their missiles resupplied, and also turn off the AA between uses so seed doesn't kill it. And then you have the excellent Pram. This is probably one of the best mortars on pack side. It's just very powerful, long range, accurate. Very nice unit at only 40 points, and then use it for smoking, use it for killing lighter targets. Just very nice mortar. And then I take the Andava. This is also really a nice unit. See, it actually has the same chassis as the Strop does, just a different gun on top, I suppose. This is actually an advanced fire control unit, so it fires in only 10 seconds or so. It's very fast off-road. It's nice that you can just move around and avoid counter battery. Really great for shelling targets, killing AA, sniping CVs, or just really getting prepared to assault a fixed position. Those are really probably the best choices for the Czechs. I don't like the Pivonka. It's just these 203mm artillery pieces just fire too slowly and not enough volume, so I much prefer the Andavas. The Osa AKMs, again, I'm not really a fan of these. They are fast AA, but they do a lot of the same job the Strop would do, and then they're vulnerable to radar. You only carry 6 missiles. So I tend to avoid the Osa, but it's not actually that bad a choice. As you would know from my Polish video, I don't like the RM70. It's just, it fires these rockets so slowly that you never have the time to get that real big shock value in them. And so it's just one after another over the course of like a minute, and it really doesn't do almost anything. And for 100 points, it's really a jip. And then this is the Czech Strela 10M, just very nice, reliable unit too. You could certainly take this over the Strop 1 and it would do a lot of the same things. Strop 1's just a little more affordable, so I take that instead. Tanks, Czechs actually have a really interesting tank section as well. They have the T-72M Moderna, which is basically their super heavy. It's got 21 front armor, 23 AP on the gun. Very powerful, and it looks kind of neat. Like, look at all these ERA blocks on the front and hanging off the turret. It's probably one of its most unique features is actually the autocannon. It's got basically a BMP-2 autocannon mounted on the top. Not too many rounds in it, only 255, but it really does help you deal with light targets and vehicles and infantry in a forest. Very powerful, nice unit, kind of an interesting synergy between that autocannon and that gun. I've actually had to shoot down helicopters that are going after it that get too close because the autocannon is pretty good at that as well. Generally, I like it, and you also get 3 per card, which is really great value for a super heavy. Because of that, actually, it almost lets Czechoslovakia play in the big leagues with USSR and America. You have to be really careful, but if you can manage your Moderna as well, you can kind of get away with it. And to that end, that's actually kind of why I have 2 cards of T-72S, which, well, the T-72S is a pretty nice tank. It's affordably priced at 135 points for what you get. 18 front armor is not the best, but it's enough to survive a lot of hits from a lot of things. There's almost nothing that would really one-shot this, so there's not too much danger. Very durable. It has 20 AP on its gun. I think 20 AP is kind of the magic number for being able to kind of hurt, or at least do a little bit more than scratch the tanks of enemy super heavies. You see with 2 cards of these, I have a total of 8 to back up my Modernas and give my armored push a lot of bulk and a lot of power behind it. Of course, it has a Siver missile, which is fairly accurate, nice AP, just pretty good anti-tank missile as far as those go. To complement it, I also have the very affordable T-72 M1M, which is the domestic Czech version of the T-72B. Literally a stat clone compared to the USSR version, the same 15 armor, the same gun. For 95 points, this is actually a really great value in a tank. Very nice, very affordable, and I definitely like it. And then to round out my tank section, I take the T-55 AM2 Dina-1. The Dina is neat because it's actually a 1990s modernization package for the T-55s. That makes it the most modern and most relevant T-55 in the game. And it's probably also the only T-55 in the game worth using, frankly. It comes with these Arkan missiles, which are a nice 2,800 meter range, just kind of sniper missiles. You can really use these guys as a kind of further back slinging missiles to support your heavier tanks. And it actually has pretty good armor too for 16 or 65 points cost. Now, I do wish that its gun was longer range. I think there's a little bit more they could do to make this tank better, but generally it's not a bad value, and it's a unique unit that the Czechs have, and so I certainly don't mind using it. There certainly are some other choices, like you could take the T-72M or even the base T-72 is kind of a cheaper spam tank, or even the T-62CZ, but this thing's gotten way too expensive over the course of being nerfed. I personally don't deal with these spam tanks as much anymore, so I kind of stick with the Dina as my cheapest one. The Dina is definitely a tank you want behind your main tank force, not in front of it. It's not a bulk, soak up hits tank. It's a stand back and sling missiles tank, and it does that job pretty well. For Recon, again, some interesting choices. We have the Specialny Jednotky, which are a really nice Recon Elite Infantry. So you actually take 2 cards of them on Elite for a total of 8, which is basically equivalent to the average Infantry Special Forces card, which gives an availability of 8. It does have a carbine, which carbines are pretty much the best infantry carry weapon in the game. Have a nice combination of SMG rate of fire with assault rifle accuracy and range. And of course they have the Lada RPK, which is an improved RPK, and it's pretty decent as well. Very powerful RPG-26. The AP is not the best, but it's workable. Decent accuracy, decent range, and the all-important 20 rounds per minute that allows it to just really eat up tanks and eat up light vehicles and forests. I really like these guys. They're a great addition to the deck, and I take 2 cards of them. It wouldn't be a bad idea for you to do that as well. And I take the Svatava, which is just a BMP-1 with exceptional optics and a missile. At 50 points, it's a pretty good value for those exceptional optics. You could take the Snezka, which is just a BMP-2 variant of it, but for 10 points more, you don't really get anything else. You get an autocannon instead of a Grom, which is nice, but you lose the missile. Frankly, I think the Snezka should be 50 points as well, and then it'd be more of a toss-up, but just to save money, I go with the Svatava. And then for a Recon Helicopter, I go with the standard, reliable Mi-2. There's not really many other choices to go with for that, at least not in the Czech deck. The only other real Recon unit worth noting, I think, is the OT-65RL, which is exceptional optics, and it is 90 speed off-road. It's small. It's a pretty nice unit as well. I just happen to prefer the Svatava just because it kind of helps with tank pushes more, and it's a little bit more survivable just because of the armor. And then Prus Komnichi are interesting as well because they have a Dragunov designated marksman rifle. Not a bad choice, but I think they get a little overshadowed by the Specialny Jinoki, and so I would take them over the Prus Komnichi. Vehicle tab, the very reliable flame tank. I take the Conquer's M vehicle as well, just because there aren't really any other good options, I don't think, and I had points to spare. You could look into the Pram. This is actually a fire support variant of the mortar we looked at earlier. I don't think it's that good. It's got only 4 of the old Conquerors. This is supposed to be an infantry killer gun, but it only has 5 HE. It's not very powerful. It's not even very long range, so I don't think this is that great a unit. If you want to try and use this like the the Centurion AVRE for British or the M60 Sev for America, it's not going to work as well. The HE on the launcher is not as high, its armor is not as high. Not a great unit, I don't think. They didn't think this one out too carefully. And then the OT 810D is a popular choice as well. It looks like a World War II era half-track with a recoilless rifle mounted on top. I don't really like it. It's just, I don't know. It's just, for 15 points, I guess it's okay, but kind of low accuracy. It's just meant to, I guess, hit tanks and do 1 damage with its heat gun. Certainly give it a try if you want, but not my thing. Helicopters, you see the Czechs are a little bit light on options here. They do have the kind of standard Hind variant with a Yak-B rotary cannon that can target things without having to come to a stop, which makes it really nice for fire support and shooting enemy helicopters. It's got the full complement of 64 missiles and then 8 Kokon missiles. Not bad. I think maybe these are getting a little bit outdated with their missiles only 20 AP and their rockets being only 1 HE. But I still like these for fire support and kind of exploiting enemies who maybe weren't so conscientious with how they position their AA. So there's actually another Hind variant, the Mi-25 S-24. It's named that way for the S-24 rockets it has, which are these huge 240mm rockets that fire 10 HE. You only get 4 of them, so you kind of want to be careful, but if you can get a good position and just let them rip on some enemy column or AA bunch, you can really do a lot of damage. So it's an interesting unit, I think, particularly for starting forces and starting deployments. It's a little bit cheaper than the regular Hind, so you can get away with it maybe in a starting force a little more easily, again because of that cost effectiveness. As long as there's only one other helicopter, I might as well cover the Mi-4. This actually isn't a bad helicopter. It's got 82 HE rockets for only 40 points. This is a really, look at all these rockets just under the pylons here, this helicopter. I don't personally use it, but this wouldn't be a stupid choice. It's got a lot of power for that 40 points, and so you could certainly try that out as well. For Air Force, this is the point where Czechoslovakia kind of loses it. Their biggest problems are in their Air Force, and namely, they don't have a real ASF, and they don't have a seaplane to complement an otherwise strong close air support arm. And what I'm talking about is the Czechoslovakia, their best ASF is this MiG-23ML. Okay, you can get 3 on Elite, and they're pretty good at taking down bombers, but if you're going to try and attack an enemy Rafale or F-15, you really have to use all 3, and then you're spending 300 points to go after 180 point ASF. It's really hard to make that math work. And then even then, they only have 10 ECM. They're real easy to lose. Patriots will swat them out of the air like they're nothing. You have to take them, I think, just to defend against bombers and have something you can do, but they're definitely not the best, and I wish the Czechs had gotten an ASF MiG-29. Unfortunately, their MiG-29 went into close air support because Eugen wanted to be a little more varied, I guess. This plane actually isn't too bad. It's got 4 napalm bombs, so they have napalm, but they're also high explosive, so unlike most napalm planes, these will do damage when the bombs fall, and then also linger as flames for a while. That's not bad. It used to be a lot worse, and they've buffed it since then, thankfully. It does have a nice 40% ECM, so it's relatively survivable. Again, I think we probably could have added more by making this a good ASF, but it is what it is, and it's not going to get changed, so use it while you can. It does look very nice, as you can see. The paint job's kind of unique and lovely. And then for other close air support, they have the Su-25K. I like this plane. It's got 4 strong missiles, it's got an anti-tank gun, and the same 4 rockets we saw in that helicopter earlier. A very versatile unit. Unfortunately, without seed to escort it, you have a lot of trouble with keeping it alive, and it's really best used to complement a kind of larger air assault, like a couple of MiG-29s going in to drop bombs along with this Su-25K coming in. This can certainly exploit enemy mistakes where they leave AA behind and such, so definitely use it. It's basically your only worthwhile tank buster, so you almost need it. Just make sure you suppress enemy AA before you use it, or get an ally to send seed with you. And then finally, the good old Su-22 bomber from Czechoslovakia. 2 1,000 kilogram bombs. It's the poor man's Strike Eagle. Not a terrible choice. Again, I wish there was seed to escort it, but you just don't have it, and so you can get away with bombing with this. You just gotta be careful with how you use it and how you suppress enemy AA, and again, have an ally loan you a seed plane to escort your attack. There aren't really too many other choices here. There's the MiG-23BN, which is it's kind of a crappy ATGM plane. The missiles aren't very long range. They're semi-active. I don't personally like that. I'd rather just have the Su-25K, because the Su-25K is armored. It does have ECM. It does have multi-role capability with its rockets. It can shoot infantry or tanks. And then, of course, here's the old 1960s, 1950s planes like the Avia, which competes for the worst ASF game in the title with basically nothing. It has that on lock. It's only got air-to-air rockets. Probably won't ever use this. And then these various cheap bombers that are basically single use. I tend to avoid these. I do like this air section. I just wish it had seed and a better ASF, but it is what it is. Like I said, Czechoslovakia is a lot of fun to play. They offer a lot of unique units that other nations don't have, just because they had such good domestic arms industry that kind of fueled their army in a way that they don't have to rely on the Soviets as much as, for example, the East Germans did. And so in the end, it allows kind of an interesting playstyle where you have relatively good city fighting capabilities with all your bombers and your Zaniste and your spammable Motostrelci, but also the capability to really engage in forests and long-range open areas with your stronger tanks and your fire support options. So I guess that about covers it. Please remember to comment, like, subscribe, and all that. I love hearing feedback and just generally engaging with my audience. And yeah, thanks so much for watching, and look forward to more videos shortly. Take care, guys.